How's it going, everybody? With the reveal stream of this season showcasing some of the upcoming TG changes, the theory crafting has gone wild. The testing ground is still a little over 2 weeks out and the details are sparse, but that doesn't stop people from making the wildest predictions. And as you were able to see, I picked one of those for the thumbnail. And while correct, Jungjun certainly does get buffed with these changes, I want to take this chance to shed a little light on the why and how we should focus on the big picture rather than pick out specific side effects of the much larger changes. Don't get me wrong, these Garbreak vulnerability changes seem to be coming out of nowhere, and I'm also skeptical on how these will affect the game as a whole. I can see many potential problems on many different heroes, but this is what the testing grounds are for. If these changes randomly dropped without testing, I'd be all up in arms, but we do get to try them beforehand, give our feedback, and then hopefully the necessary changes will be made, or the whole idea scrapped if it turns out to be nonsense. So, if you missed the changes, check out my last video, I did go over the changes there. Fact is that this testing ground is aimed at changing a core concept of how For Honor is played. It is a major change to recoveries and how we punish them. This is a change that affects all heroes. It's not a testing ground that focuses on changes of like 2 heroes. Every single one is affected by it. And while some are affected more than others, both in positive and negative ways, we need to differentiate between something that is intended to change in this specific way and then changes that are just an unexpected side effect and probably should not occur in this specific manner. We can make a ton of predictions of how this will work out, and me saying in the last video that it will be a massive Jungjun buff is probably not really up for debate. It's pretty much certain that he benefits from it. But there is no way for us to predict every single tiny aspect of the overall change. The important part here is to focus on the big picture, like I said before, and then once that stops looking like painted by a cubist, we can then look into the side effects. With that I mean changes that will need to come to specific heroes if the Garbreak changes go through. Like many of you pointed out already, there are heroes without dodge attacks that need to get one, for example. But if you focus on this from the beginning, meaning you say, these changes are shit because Centurion has no dodge attack, then your whole approach is doomed to fail. So ask yourself what the point of the whole change is. The devs said they want more offense, an outnumbered person being able to press buttons by having his finishes not GBable all the time, giving characters the ability to use their entire kit in most situations. Just to pick a few. Looking at these big aspects first is important. As it is right now, there is a certain skill aspect in knowing what buttons you can press when you're outnumbered. Different heroes have different ways of sneaking in damage without getting punished. The testing ground erodes that skill aspect to a large degree, and I can certainly see how this rubs some people the wrong way. On the one hand, we have a huge discrepancy between heroes when it comes to situations like that. Take Warlock for example. He has very short chains and pretty much throwing out any finisher or even headbutting will get him Garbroken immediately. He will benefit from that change in the testing ground. What we need to weigh up now is whether this benefits the game or if a different approach in changing Warlord specifically would lead to a better game overall. Then take Jungjun as an example for the other end of the spectrum. He can press plenty buttons when outnumbered. Quite frankly, you might say he gets stronger the more enemies he has around him. Huge hitboxes make it hard to punish him in the first place. Getting a Garbreak on his finishes is certainly possible though. Now, taking that away will make it much easier to stay safe. There's no necessity anymore to stuff GB attempts with a Shifu zone. You just let them bounce off of your finisher recovery instead of recovery cancelling. He will be even more of a menace and even harder to punish. Combine that with the Shifu buff, he might be just absolute overkill. The specific Shifu buff needs a closer look as it's move dependent each time. But yeah, it's not just these individual heroes, it's whole move types that might be too strong or overly oppressive. Charged dash heroes might become an absolute nightmare, Hitokiri in particular. Or looking further, Aramusha will be the undisputed king in duels and nearly untouchable. There are so many potential problems that it is really hard to point them out without having even played the changes. Don't focus on one particular issue for one particular champion. It is a huge change to how the game is played as a whole, at the lowest level as well as the highest level. Ganks at the top level will require more precise setups now. While they are still very potent, getting into them might now be a lot harder. So yeah, the testing grounds will need tons of work, since it seems to be a blanket change to all heroes, while I think that a much more nuanced approach is necessary to achieve what the devs are looking for. I doubt we'll see a quick implementation of these changes after the test, and a lot of feedback is needed from everybody, because it will affect skill levels differently, and fixes might not be as apparent as other times. At the end of the day, I think this time it's not as clear cut as with the CCU. The core combat update was necessary, and pretty much everybody with the semblance of a working brain will agree with this. This time it's a little different. How much do we need this blanket change, and how much of the problems that it fixes could be approached in a different, more effective, yet more work-intensive way? There will be lots to discuss once this testing route comes around, and I can see a lot of different opinions that will clash over this. It'll be an interesting one. Let's hope the end result is worth it. Feel free to share your predictions on this, either down below in the comments or on Discord. You'll get plenty pushback, I'm sure of that. Having said all that, hope the video was interesting. Thanks for watching. Latest everybody.